Good morning, everyone. This is Jim Chastain with EasyPower. Welcome to the EasyPower webinar series. And we have today a guest speaker that we're anxious to get the information from. Before I introduce our guest speaker, would like to invite you to participate in our poll questions that we typically collect. There's no obligation and nothing restricts you as far as the information, but we do appreciate the feedback, and it helps the presenter understand the context of the audience regarding the subject. So here's what our poll questions look like for today. And again, if you would please participate by giving us your response. We would appreciate it. So the first is, where do you stand with respect to remote racking or remote switching within your organization? As far as I know, this is the first time we've kind of covered this topic, so I'm interested in seeing how the audience is coming at the subject. We do appreciate your participation and your attendance today. Furthermore, if you have suggestions on other topics that you'd like for us to include in this series, be more than happy to take that as part of the feedback. So it looks like we have a quorum here. We'll leave this open another 5 seconds or so. Here's how folks weighed in on this one. Excellent. All right, here's the second one. That is, what's the most important? Oh, I guess I got them out of the order. At what level does your facility management manage the switching mechanisms? All right, looks like we have a plurality. And here's how folks weighed in on this one. Excellent. And then finally, what's the most important consideration for deciding how to handle this task? Again, we record these presentations and make them available on the website approximately a week after we conduct them. So you're more than welcome to access the information at your own leisure. And again, we do appreciate your support of EasyPower and attending these webinars and participating in our poll questions. Thank you very much. Okay, with that in mind, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers today, both with CBS ArcSafe, Justin Gaull and Russ Seyfried. Justin, I'm handing the presentation over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jim. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today. And I'm Justin Gaull with CBS ArcSafe, and I work in business development and marketing for ArcSafe. And with me, I have my colleague, Russ Seyfried, who's one of our principal design engineers with CBS ArcSafe. And he's here to help us answer any technical questions that might come up beyond my ability today. And the purpose today is to, or the agenda is to introduce you all to remote racking and remote switching technologies, and to kind of position them as an engineered control that reduces arc flash hazards. Also, it's a very fitting week for this presentation because it's actually Burn Awareness Week. And you know, one of the key risks with arc flash is burn injuries, and it might be a good toolbox safety topic for your organizations this week because it is Burn Awareness Week, and you can find out more on that through ABA, or the American Burn Association, and their website is ameriburn.org. So once upon a time in the Gulf of Mexico, there was a offshore oil rig, an oil platform, and there was an engineer and 2 technicians, and they had an outage. They had a breaker racked out. They racked that breaker in, and then directly mounted above it was a control switch. And they put a chicken switch device on the control switch, closed it, and they had an arc flash. And that chicken switch blew across the aisleway and hit a wall. And what you're looking at on the screen right now is the unit that we repaired for them, and sent a repaired unit for them to put back in service. But we did get a big thank you from that company for potentially saving up to 2 lives that day. And I like to show this just as a reminder. We talk about it for our staff, saying that, remember that the tools that you make today could save a life tomorrow, and makes a really good use case because we get to see this on occasion in different varieties and in different situations. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about arc flash hazards, why remote racking and remote switching matters, and then we'll introduce the types of remote switching solutions and the types of remote racking solutions. Just a little one-on-one arc flash. An arc flash is a sudden and rapid release of electrical energy through the air from an arcing fault current. And that fault current could occur from phase to phase, or phase to neutral, or phase to ground, and it's conducted through the ionization of air. And the two most critical factors in an arc flash are the available fault current and the clearing time. And an increase in either one of those could lead to an increase in the incident energy that's available at that switchgear. Some of the hazards that come about with an arc flash include thermal hazards such as burns, an arc blast or a pressure wave, which would be kind of a concussive risk, an acoustic wave, which is, of course, hearing. And then there's, talking about 35,000 degrees potentially, and that would introduce vaporized copper and metals that become a breathing hazard. Definitely not something that you want to breathe into your lungs. Of course, the arc flash itself is a visual hazard. And then there's the potential for shrapnel or physical debris flying through the air. And these are all things that, even though we wear PPE, these are things that PPE may not always protect against, depending on the incident energy that's there. And this is why we make the case to try to create distance between the arc flash hazard and the worker. So arc flash hazards, we really start protecting ourselves at 1.2 calories per centimeter squared, and that's the equivalent of a cigarette lighter being lit for 1 second, basically. And really, it's also the onset of potential for second-degree burns, depending on the amount of time you'd be exposed to that. And when we look at arc flash safety, a lot of companies that we work with and some of our customers have this special mark of 40 calories. They say, if something's going to be over 40 calories, then we will use remote switching whenever that is an option. And 40 calories, I think, as they're looking at that and evaluating it, they're finding it has to do more with available current, and but still, a lot of companies use that as a point for remote switching. And also, as we look at this, you'll find that incident energy decreases exponentially as the distance is increased, another key value for the solutions we provide. So here's some data that is pretty prevalent out there in the marketplace. A lot of entities use this data set about arc flash statistics and injuries and fatalities. And it says, on average, there are 5 to 10 arc flash incidents per day in the U.S., resulting in more than 30,000 injuries and 400 deaths annually, with about 80% of fatalities due to burns, not shocks. And arc flashes not only occur in high voltage environments, but actually it's more common with 480 power systems. And we hear customers tell us that they are more scared of their 480 systems than they are some of their medium voltage applications. But I want to point out this data set. I would acknowledge that even though this is widely quoted, it is somewhat of an older data set, and you'll find through OSHA and a lot of the things that NFPA 70E has implemented, we're really a lot safer than this today. And so this is kind of dated information, but the reason we're safer is because our industries are employing safety tactics and taking NFPA 70E seriously. And I think that has to do with the sharp reduction that we see in these numbers, and the continued use of that will yield hopefully more and more safety and better numbers. So in 2018, NFPA 70E introduced the hierarchy of hazard control measures in the book, and adopted it into 70E in 2018. And the reason I point that out is I like to showcase where our type of solutions, that's remote racking and remote switching, fits in that hierarchy. And if number one, the best thing you can do is eliminate the hazard, which by and far is the absolute best solution, and then the least effective form of protection is wearing PPE, then it makes a case for remote switching, remote racking. It falls in as item number 3, an engineered control for less hazardous exposure or severity. So I'm going to back that statement up for a second and say that I think it's better to take a systems approach to this. And by that, I would say that you need to have administrative controls in place by upper management, by supervisors that say that, if remote switching and remote racking is available, we're mandating that it is used. And you also need the warning signs and other communications in place, such as the arc flash labels that say, here's what the actual hazard is, and here's how far you need to be away, and set that parameter. And then it depends too on training and making sure that people will utilize the equipment correctly for it to be an effective engineered control. And so I really like to, even though when used correctly, our devices are certainly engineered controls, they have to be used correctly. You have to follow the warnings, and ideally management is bought into this as a solution and mandates its use whenever applicable. So I want to review some situations that may warrant remote racking and or remote switching. These would be ideal solutions, and this is limited. It's certainly not every situation out there. But first is when incident energy is too high. So here we're looking at an arc flash label, and you'll see that the boundary is 37 feet away, and incident energy here is over 136 calories. And the sticker says clearly exceeds maximum PPE. This is a great situation to bring in remote switching and remote racking whenever you can. Another situation is when you need to de-energize or energize. When we talk to customers, or if we're at a trade show and on the trade show floor, we'll ask potential customers about what kind of policies they have, and they say, we don't work on anything energized. We always de-energize for any kind of maintenance that we're going to do. And I have to question where in the upstream part of that do you de-energize and re-energize, because at some point in that system there's going to be some switching taking place, and if you don't have a mimic panel or some type of other solution in place, our tools could certainly be of use for that. Again, throwing an MCC handle or tripping or closing a breaker, and then racking it for maintenance. Another situation is when normal operating conditions cannot be verified. So we're looking at NFPA 70E, and specifically Article 130.1. You'll see that there's some exceptions around how you approach arc flash safety based on normal operating conditions. And you have to make sure that equipment is properly installed and properly maintained. It's being used in accordance with instructions of the manufacturer and the listings. The equipment doors are to be secured and closed, and the covers are in place and secured. And then there's no evidence of impending failure. And some of the questions we have around that is, how sure can you be of the last person that was maybe in the switchgear before you? Or when you're looking for evidence of impending failure, what might be situations that it's hard to see unless you're walking around with a thermal camera or something to know if there's an overheated component on the inside. So, if there's any doubt to any one of these, it makes a good case for figuring out a way to get away from it whenever possible. Another situation is when it minimizes plant downtime and saves money. We see this a lot with refinery customers of ours, where maybe shutting down a specific breaker or an MCC means they have to shut down an entire production unit to address one little problem. Using tools like this gives you a way to isolate that particular bucket or that breaker, and to create distance and maybe not shut down the entire operation, which could be saving thousands of dollars an hour depending on the production process. So there are certainly circumstances where not only is it safe, but it also saves a lot of money for our customers. And finally, I'll just point out that it's a great solution whenever it is possible to get away from it. And so again, looking at that hierarchy of hazard control measures, even if the incident energy isn't at 40 calories, maybe it's 20. I mean, there's still situations where it's close enough that I wouldn't want to be standing in front of it. And if the solutions are available to get away, or maybe if I don't have things like current limiting devices in place or protective relays, that it makes sense to utilize remote switching or racking. So this is like a little chart that we've used here at CBS ArcSafe before, and it just kind of points out the frequency with what you would do certain operations. So operating and switching MCC disconnects is the most frequent high-risk task that occurs in a lot of facilities, followed by the switching of circuit breakers. In some places may not rack a breaker, but once or twice a year, if that. But as you go down that chart, you'll see the severity actually increases, or the risk of something happening could be a more severe incident. But regardless of what happens, what's important to remember is the incident energy at that particular unit is going to be the same. So we built our business really on remote racking in the early days. Now we are starting to see switching technologies and more customer demand for switching solutions. That's really kind of been the next big wave for us. So I want to go through some types of remote switching solutions that are available. We have devices for control switches, such as the original Chicken Switch device. And by the way, Chicken Switch is a brand name that was started by Martech Limited, and in 2018, CBS ArcSafe bought that company and is continuing those solutions, and they're available. Everything that was made by Chicken Switch is now available through CBS ArcSafe. So, and funny story is, Chicken Switch is one of those names where, OSHA's told us they hate the name, but they love the product. And it's one of those things that's kind of taken off, and name-wise, it has a lot of recognition. And when you achieve that kind of market position, you really don't want to walk away from that name. So, we hear stories all the time that, that's a really clever name, or man, I don't like it, or, but one thing is for certain, it's been a really good brand for us, and we're excited to keep it going. So we make those for control switches. Of course, we have the RSA devices, remote switching devices from CBS ArcSafe for circuit breakers. We have solutions for molded case circuit breakers, which, as you know, are, there's a lot of torque involved with flipping those handles, but we do have reliable solutions for that. And then we have solutions for MCC disconnects that will, flip the on and off lever on MCCs. And to walk through some examples of these, you'll see that what we're looking at here is one of the traditional Chicken Switch devices. It's mounted on a pistol grip control switch. There's about 6 different models of that for different sizes of control switches. And keep in mind, these control switches are often mounted right above a breaker, a lot of times a medium voltage breaker or something high like that. And these, the need to get away from it is paramount. And that's what this solution provides. One thing to note here is that we have changed our design somewhat and introduced Milwaukee red lithium M18 batteries. So now we have a rechargeable battery option for these, and a wireless control system that gets you up to 100 feet away. Most of these devices come with a cord that's either 30 or 50 feet, and now we're able to offer a wireless version of this that gets you up to 100 feet away with a rechargeable battery. So we also have RSA devices from CBS ArcSafe. There are situations where maybe remote charging of a charging handle is required. Some companies have policies that say if you're going to charge it, you need to either wear PPE or use this equipment to pull that lever. And on certain circuit breakers, that is certainly the case. You could be pulling that charging spring handle, and then the breaker will close, and they're designed to do that. The good news is, I will say that CBS ArcSafe is an expert in understanding these breakers and knowing the types of breakers out there and which ones have those features in place. So that is an option to have charge trip close as well as trip close. These are really the solenoids that push the close and trip buttons. And the RSAs are operated with what we call an RSO, which is a remote switch operator. And what's nice about this system is you can have a central control operator, the RSO, you have a central one of those, and they can connect to many different varieties of remote switch actuators. We do have to have different switch actuators for different breakers simply because geometry is different on every breaker, and there's things like torque that's different on different breakers, and so we do have to design solutions for every breaker out there. And the good news is CBS ArcSafe really does have a solution for just about every type of breaker in North America, dating all the way back to the 1960s, maybe earlier. Here we're looking at one of the solutions for a molded case circuit breaker, and this is our solution for the square D in-frame molded case breaker. And I'd like to show a video if it will pull up here for me. So I'm going to talk through this, but as this video is playing, you see that the RSA, or remote switch actuator, is mounted right there on that molded case breaker. We turn two mag switch magnets, and then the operator would stand back to a safe distance. It might be 30 or 50 feet away. They'll turn the unit on, and a very simple operation. They can close it, or they can hit trip and go in either direction. They can do that without the need to reapproach the breaker or readjust anything. And the other important thing to point out is we can do this from up to 300 feet away with a wireless pendant that will talk to that control unit. And I want to really show molded case circuit breakers because for a long time that's something we have a lot of requests for. And we have solutions for motor control centers. And so on the left side of the screen, you're looking at a device that operates Allen Bradley 2100 MCC disconnects. There are solutions that go all the way through the medium voltage option for that. And over here on the right side of the screen is a little short video clip that shows you that's a Cutler hammer Freedom 2100 series MCC. And here's how one of those devices would work.
Line it up over the switch, lock the two magnets in place, don't create everything with the arms or anything, the trip arm, they'll fall back out of the way. Press the wake button to power the unit up, and we'll raise off. The handheld controller, you hold the enable button, in this case we're going to turn the switch off, but it's already on. And it's off, we want to turn it back on. Delete. Back. For both the V2001, turn it off, firmly grab a hold of it, click the magnet, pull it away.
So what I'd like to point out with that video, as with most all of our solutions, is the simplicity of the use of that tool. Everybody, I think I saw on one of our poll questions that ease of use is very important. And what you'll find with a lot of our solutions is many of them are lightweight and easily portable. And turning two quick magnets and then be able to stand back, operate it, and quickly retrieve it, put it back in this carrying case. It's really a simple operation. So we pride ourselves on trying to develop more and more user-friendly solutions like that. So next I want to talk about remote racking. CBS ArcSafe started with what we call the RRS1, which is a universal remote racking system for rotary-style circuit breakers. They've since expanded into single application racking systems that are designed for specific circuit breakers, and also MCC remote racking systems. So let's take a look at some of those. This is an example of this is the RRS1, again, remote racking system. That's the original product from CBS ArcSafe. And you'll find that unit it works on slides, and it can move up. There's a motor option where it can move itself up to certain heights. I think it can get 4 cabinets high, and you'll have attachments that go in and attach to the racking mechanism on the breaker, and then that lines up with the motor, and we'll rack any rotary style circuit breaker that's commonly available. So nice solution. It's highly portable. It's got 2 protection features on it. One is a mechanical clutch, and the other is an amperage protection setting. And what's nice about that is you can set those parameters for every breaker that you've got in your facility that has a rotary racking mechanism. It's important to stay up to date on this and understand how it's used. And so if any of you have this device out there and maybe you've had staff turnover or changes at your plant, people move on sometimes, and then there's new people coming on board that have maybe not been trained on this entirely or adequately. We would love to hear from you and offer that up and set a time for us to get back in and offer training on this device. We do offer training on this at the initial sale, but we do need to make sure that our customers are feel good and confident when using this, because it's a great solution. There's no programming that has to take place computer-wise. You don't have to pay anything extra to have this available for any rotary style breaker you've got. So again, if you have that or are interested in it, we have field teams out that are available to come out on site, do demonstrations of this, and really give people a lot of confidence in using this equipment. The next application is our RRS3 product line. So this is remote racking systems that are designed for specific breakers. For example, you may have a Magnum DS circuit breaker, and maybe that's mostly what you've got in your facility. We can offer, for a lower price than the universal device, you could get a specific racking mechanism for that Magnum DS. Pretty lightweight, puts on it attaches like our remote switching solutions with the twist of the mag switch magnets. And they would operate using an RSO, or that control box that's similar to what you saw with the switching devices. Again, you can have a central RSO and then a few different individual racking mechanisms for your lineup at your plant or your facility. We also offer now MCC remote racking systems, and so similar to the cart that the RRS1 was designed on, we have the what's called the Remote Racking System 2 BE, which stands for bucket extractor. This device is going to push or pull MCC buckets in and out of their cubicles. So there's alignment features. You'll find a magnet system on the top of the switchgear lineup, and then again on the bottom, there's an attachment for any type of MCC bucket that you have that's extraction style, and this device is going to rack that for you. So it gives people a lot of comfort to be able to do that. It's capable of reaching up to 80 inches high, so it has extended slides that will help it get higher or as high as you need to go. And it does offer a wireless remote system that can get up to 300 feet away. So we'd like to say, where would you rather be in the event of an arc flash? Up close and personal, or up to 300 feet away? And I'll close this by saying, go the distance for arc flash safety. And that's the title of our presentation today. And for some of you out there, it might be a really economical solution to extending the life of your current switchgear and giving you an added safety feature. With that, I have Russ Safried with me, so if anybody has any questions, I'll turn it back over to Jim to have any questions answered for us.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah, in fact, there's a first question that's come in is, what is the power source for these devices?
Yeah, so it varies really by the type of device that you have. Most of them are operating on a 24-volt battery. And on certain units, there is an AC 120-volt connection available through a GFCI plug-in.
Right. And then some of the units are switching to Milwaukee rechargeable lithium batteries also. So it's a variety depending on the product.
The next question is, if you're using one of these tools to turn off a supply disconnect to establish an ESWC, how do you then measure with a meter to verify the absence of voltage?
Well, you're always, measuring for voltage with the meter, that step is always going to require PPE and a proper tools and voltage rated equipment to do that. Short of installing some permanently installed voltage detector or something, you're going to have that task. You just got to view these situations there's always lots of things that can go wrong, and you got to do all you can to make the small steps safe. And anybody that's involved in this arc flash world will tell you, even the people that sell the PPE, is the number one thing you need to do to protect yourself is, if it's at all possible, is get away from it. Because just because you got your suit on doesn't absolutely guarantee you're not going to get hurt. But at the same time does not rule out the need for PPE. And testing for voltage would be, and depending where you're testing, you know, are you testing the 480 volt or the 5 kV in the back of the stabs, or are you just working on a control circuit somewhere? It's going to determine, you know, how much PPE you need. And of course, you're going to need.
So I don't see any other questions right now. Very much appreciate the presentation, and on our survey at the close of the webinar, there'll be a question for anyone that wants additional information. So here's a
Thank you, Jim.
We've got a couple other questions. So do you have a Canadian distributor? Do you have an outlet in Canada?
Yeah, so we have, we do have a company that works with us in Ontario, and in that part of Canada, and we work with various different entities in Canada. But just start by reaching out to us through our website or through our phone, and our staff will connect you with the appropriate representatives wherever you may be.
And then finally, is there an estimated cost or a range for cost of the product? Or is that something?
Yeah, I would say that there's a range. There's a range on pricing, but it would vary somewhat depending on the partner that we're working through. You know, if we're working through third parties or through our Group CBS affiliates, which is worth mentioning. We're part of Group CBS, which is a circuit breaker sales, and they're located all over the country. But we can provide quotes on that on a case-by-case basis, absolutely.
Here's an interesting question, because this is one that befuddles me. That is, will the industry ever standardize the nomenclature on operations? For instance, open and close, trip and close, off and on, O and I. I struggle with my computer.
Yeah, probably not. It's something we've got no control over, probably. But yeah, I don't see that happening, probably. And you're right. Whenever we're designing a product, we're trying to label the handheld unit. We try to label the handheld unit to match the words that's on the front of the particular breaker that it's operating. And it's exactly like you said. Sometimes it says trip close, open close,
right?
Open or on off. There's all variety.
Yeah. And you know, I didn't mention this, but we have a catalog with over 450 different solutions, and it's available for download on our website as well. That doesn't help with the nomenclature necessarily, but we do try to align the words on our equipment with the words on the respective breaker or MCC.
And then there's a request for a copy of the presentation. If you'd like to make that available, we can post it with a link on the website when we put the video up.
Sure, happy to do that.
Well, gentlemen, I thank you very much for your presentation and the material. I think the audience, it was one of the higher registrations we've seen for the topic, and so we look forward to the feedback that we get from the group. So at this point, we're ready to sign off, and maybe we'll talk again down the road. Have a good day.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, EasyPower.